I'll call to order this meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, Tuesday, May 1st. We're after 5 o'clock. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So everybody reviewed the draft minutes of April 17th?
I didn't send them out because I haven't
Okay.
done them yet.
All right. Summer meeting schedule. I believe it's been customary to make the decision to meet once a month or not. Just think about that, and maybe we'll make our decision at the next meeting. Maybe look at the calendar, see what may suit you individually as far as the first Tuesday or the first Tuesday or the third Tuesday. Sometimes I think maybe the end of the month, if we go with a one meeting per month for July and August, the end of the month, we might have more information available to us. Either way, think about it. I'd also like y'all to join me in a moment of silence for an avid scalloper, Kenny Deuce. Thank you. Marine Department report. We'll move on to natural resources. Jeff.
I have a ton to add on last time. We've kind of picked up the pace. We've offered out the full-time hatchery technician position, and hopefully we'll have that lined up soon, and that person announced and will make an appearance at some point during the near future. Other than that, we're kind of full speed ahead. Hatcheries fully up and running. We just got through a state appropriation. We're just able to obtain something for them and get everything in. 7 new well or down well tanks for the hatchery, which will enhance the grow out capabilities of that facility. So instead of just holding larval shellfish, we're hoping to hold a greater percentage beyond that phase to make them a little bit less susceptible to environmental changes or predation, or to hopefully increase their success by releasing them when they're a little older and bigger. And then sometimes different stages of their life cycle that they're not quite as wonderful. So that's a big improvement. That was made possible by the Division of Marine Fisheries. Their grant for Nantucket County. Water quality has started. I know we have to talk about water quality and shellfish beds later. And other than that, the month of April was just kind of getting everything up and running. So we're out everywhere. We talked about pond opening last time. One thing to keep on the radar coming up, the Board of Selectmen sometime in the next month are going to have their normal kind of harbor water quality update as part of their regular meeting. That Kate will be doing part of. We'll be kind of discussing it further from there when they set that date for sure. I'll at least send an email to you guys so you know, and you may be able to at least replicate that here if you aren't able to go to the Board of Selectmen meeting for you guys as well once that's set. That being said, we're also still working on scheduling the pond management forum for people to come and talk about ponds and tell their story of the ponds and the issues that they have, and talk about openings, management, and stormwater runoff, and roads, and all the stuff that kind of surround ponds. Possible in-pond management options for everything from dredging to, I know that people are interested in doing an algae treatment for a couple ponds. We're kind of going through all those options and discussing those. I'm not sure that there's going to be any definitive resolution to that, but I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to kind of compile thoughts and directions and then get something back from the Board of Selectmen for their kind of approval for the direction of how we're going to be dealing with ponds. So that's coming up soon. That was originally scheduled for this week, but we decided to push it back. We were trying to get some more information and things put together. Felt that it would be better intended if we pushed it a little bit, maybe for a lot of the residents to be around who live around the pond are there as well.
How will that be announced, Jeff?
We'll definitely announce it here. It's going to be advertised in the paper. It's going to be advertised in the town's web platform. So social media, town website. We're going to try to advertise it on 97.7, and then I never remember the numbers, but the other 89.5, I think is the other local radio station.
All for the forum on.
Yeah, we're trying to do a lot better about getting, not just for ponds, but for a lot of these, whether it's this or coastal resiliency or ponds and the things that I've involved in, trying to get the word out through as many means as possible. And I think Peter sat through a lot of water quality presentations that we had where the room would be the presenter, 4 or 5 people that were town staff, Peter, Cormac, and Peter Boyce, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. But trying to get the word out more. We've reached out to a lot of, at least for coastal resiliency, to the Civic League to email when those meetings are going to be through their groups and homeowners associations, just to see if we can get better attendance and more people kind of create a hive mind to help set what we think are the best directions going forward and get some meetings to a lot of these pretty important initiatives. So that's kind of where we're at.
Wow, great.
We try, and it will be quick to say the town has to improve outreach and those things, trying to do those things. So,
Have they put that in your hands?
some of it kind of varies around. A lot of the outreach stuff goes through. She's not really new to the town, but she's been in this role for a little over a year. A lot of it goes through Florencia Royal, who is the town's public outreach specialist. So she does all of the website postings. She arranges to get stuff on the radio and TV, and then arranges for whoever needs to be there for whichever topic. And deals with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those things that the town runs. And, all of us kind of run through her for a lot of those things. And it makes it a lot easier. So if someone has a request, it can go to her. She can get it pointed to the program person. So she does a really nice job. A lot of us have been helped immensely by just her being there and being social account. So she's very good. We'll develop the materials and hand out some things that are there at the specific form of things. Will probably be a little group of us from the town for each of the aspects that we're kind of really focused on for all of this. So health, safety, environmental health, kind of all there. Have a discussion. That's really a recommendation.
Any catch report?
Oh, sure. Sorry, last time you asked. We got the rest in. There are still a couple outstanding, but I feel pretty comfortable in saying that it looks like by the end of the season, we're going to be right around 13,000 bushels harvested. Kind of comparatively, last year we were below 5. So a much better year just by bushel count standards. I know there are a few days lost to ice, a few days lost to temperature. But that number, even with a couple extra days, doesn't change a ton. So you'd be right around 13,000 still, which is a nice return from a bad year.
And the year before that?
The year before that was closer to 12. So Dan Fonduti used to always stick by the number. He always liked 15,000. And kind of that range of 10 to 15, depending on the amount of guys going really turn to the season round. Most guys are getting their limit every day from start to end because the fleet fluctuates up and down. So obviously it'd be nice to watch those numbers go up over time. But also it's partly dependent upon effort. So we would like to see. And I know the general theory with a lot of the commercial guys that there was probably the yields going to the papers 700 to 800 bushels, in his opinion, that got left out there. So there's probably a fair amount that just we're taking this season ended, just don't get the grass growing and those things. So I think all in all, it seemed like it was a pretty successful season for the guys. And I know, one of the the high counts, which I know Bruce Coward was close to the top number, and as an individual, he managed to harvest 460 bushels. So there were a couple guys that are right around there, but he also was probably one of the ones that missed the fewest amount of things. So I think that's a pretty good number.
Impressive. Yeah. Wow. Did you do the math? Make sure he was
Added up.
legit.
Well, we added it up for him. So
Yeah.
that was just, it's all from catch reports. We don't ask for locations of where guys are going or anything crazy. We just want to know how many bushels they took per day. And then the wardens that are out when they see guys, they kind of just make notes at the same time. Whoever they check, they write it down. And then that way, we take their notes and compare them to catch reports. And all of a sudden, we're like, well, JC said that Bruce had 3 on the 1st of December, and Bruce is saying he had 5, and then it happens again multiple times, and you see it, then you start to go. And we should sit down and figure out how many really went through, but we didn't want to have that issue. Everyone's good, so.
Yeah.
See it a lot.
As far as the seeds goes, Jeff, do you see any relation to there not being anything from the hatchery last year to the low amount of seed being seen?
Well, actually, the hatchery definitely was in production. Some of it, and this is partially speculation from my end, is the hatchery's producing on a pretty regular schedule coming out. It's not.
I thought it might have been an effect from the 1 year when it was being rebuilt. Am I a year behind? Or
Yeah, that would have been 2 seasons ago. But what's interesting about it is, well, it still doesn't account for natural spawn, which is still probably far more productive than what the hatchery is going to produce. It's the real system, you know, it's the better. But the one thing that we've always wondered with the hatchery and stuff that Tara and I talked about pretty regularly is the hatchery's putting out larvae on a pretty regular cycle that doesn't necessarily always mirror what you would see in nature, where you're going to have a spawn and it's going to be, you know, water temperatures go. So it's going to move through the harbor a little bit differently, but it's still going to be fairly centralized. The hatchery's producing really from now through the summer. What that's going to do to the overall growth and kind of age class on the scallops, it's going to stratify it some. So you're going to see a lot of, you know, if you were just measuring growth rates, nutrition plays a big role in it too, but instead of seeing a lot of very consistent ones, you're going to find it kind of all over the place because these scallops are 2 months older than these scallops, which are, you know, 3 weeks older than these scallops. How that's going to kind of play out going forward, you're going to end up with a little bit more of a mix. And that may also affect what you're seeing for seed, that the seed that went into the late season may not be in the same size as what the seed was that went in, you know, May. So all of those things kind of play together, and those are things that we're kind of looking for out in the field and kind of trying to assess to see how they go. It's one of the reasons why we're always so interested in stranding and seed habitat, and also trying to do some real late stock assessments on big dogs, just to see if the hatchery's effort is more quantifiable, but also how that's dealing with the regular, naturally developed scallop. So how those kind of interrelate together, dealing with scallops that may be 3 months older than others. The species that's life cycle is 2 years, 3 months. It's a significant difference. One of the areas we're looking to kind of pivot to a little bit further as we kind of develop and have a little bit more grow out and see how that goes. So, we've talked about from genetic markers to shell analysis from the hatchery and open, kind of go forward. And then we had a research from Northeastern that was interested in doing some collaboration on that to help us out. I mean, still kind of under development, so there's still not things to work out. Things we're interested in doing as far as measuring the hatchery against what's being produced. It's really interesting. I wish I had a better answer.
board members, questions for Jeff's report?
Yeah, Jeff, can you update us on the oyster situation?
Sure. So there's still the same 8 growers. I know there's a lot of word on the street of people moving and people transferring. So there's kind of 2 processes afoot with the aquaculture pieces. So just a quick reminder to everybody, there's really 3 primary locations that are currently in use and in production. So there's the Pocono site where Simon Edwards and Steve Bender have some lease area. There's the main site, which is the larger 80 acres ahead of the harbor. Most everyone is. And then there's the area, actually there's 4, sorry. There's the, Winnet, Cascada area, so still in the main harbor, but up in that end. That could be used for overwintering, kind of a little bit of summer storage. And there's kind of if there's a Lydium bloom or something of concern, area for guys to get if they can get clean water there. And Jamie Marks still has his area within Cascada Pond. And then the only other areas that are approved are the Shimo area, which we have our oyster reef, which is outside of production. And there's some lease spots in Pulvis Harbor, which no one's occupying right now. We're kind of being held because this is kind of what our colony is a little bit strange, and everyone seems to be overly interested in the spot. It's a tough spot, but when guys have their leases, they're able to do 2 things with them outside of working their lease. So right now, there are a couple individuals that have expressed the ability and the want to potentially transfer. So the way the regulations, both state and local, work is if I hold a lease, right, if I had Jeff Carlson Oysters, I can essentially sell that business to Andy Lowell to take over Jeff Carlson Oysters. You can transfer that lease and that license to someone that they still have to qualify for they still have to qualify to hold the lease, so they would still have to be a resident and be over 14 and meet the other requirements that are needed. But then that lease is able to be transferred by vote of the Board of Selectmen. So that's pretty standard in this business, and you see it a lot. And that's why you see some companies that have been around for years and years selling oysters because they're able to transfer through. And then one of the provisions as part of transfers is you can always transfer to a family member, or if someone happens to get injured or pass away, they can transfer to a family member as well. And that actually doesn't require the vote of the selectmen, it just gets accepted for family-to-family transfer. That way, the family can then, if Jeff Carlson Oysters, if Jeff Carlson died, the family can transfer it off and then recoup part of that business that they were going to go forward to. So that's how the DMF set it up, and that's kind of how we adopted it from there. The second way you can get a lease is if there's open area that the town makes available. That's open on kind of a first come, first served basis. And when they're full, we hold a wait list, and then we check in with those individuals once a year to make sure that they want to maintain themselves on the wait list. We had 4 people on the wait list, and 2 of them no longer qualified to go to Long Island, so they have withdrawn. And the other 2 have kind of kept their names, but we haven't opened up any new areas yet. That being said, they would still have the ability to, if they're interested in some transfer a piece to them, they can obtain a lease that way. So there's kind of the 2 ways to do it. So, there's a lot of speculation about one of the growers leaving Island, and then another one at the end of the season potentially leaving Island. But we haven't received any formal request to transfer anything at this point. When they do, I'm sure we'll have it here because part of the process would involve going to the Board of Selectmen and to get on past practice to bring that here to run it for you guys and say, this is what we're looking to do. And you guys can endorse it or not, and then we'll go to the Board of Selectmen for its final public hearing and transfer. So that's kind of where we're at with the leases right now.
Are either of the 2 that are on the wait list, are they pursuing actively?
Not really.
Okay. So they're not waiting
No,
and
they're
kind of chomping at the bit.
One of
Okay.
them, I will tell you, one of them paints houses and is doing pretty well. And the other one is interested in doing it, but only in Nantucket. We don't have any qualified areas in Nantucket. So, we're waiting to see. There may be something that we explore adding some areas in Nantucket. But that's something that we actively pursue at this point. But considering that 5 years ago, we really had less than half of what we have now as a program. So I'm trying not to overwhelm and load up the harbor with oyster grove cages on both ends of the islands and get backlash back onto it. Everything kind of settle and people get used to it, see it, and understand how it works and what goes on. Kind of be smart, kind of phase it in. And expand it as there's interest, but also as there's cruise. Unfortunately, for aquaculturists, our habitat is still too good in a lot of spots to qualify for aquaculture. You can't have any eelgrass, and you have to have less than one shellfish per square foot in that area. And we don't have a lot of those areas. It's good that the natural habitat's still so good, but if you wanted to start from release or clams or mussels or something that it makes, we have the same problem identifying sites for shellfish restoration areas for those areas. We just have identifying sites that qualify.
Are mussels included in that?
They can be.
No, as far as having the shellfish per square foot, whether you can have oyster farmers there, any shellfish.
They find razor clams, they find scallops, they find quahogs, they find any shellfish in those in that area. They have a formula they apply to do both areas. They do nitrogen insects and those kinds of things to make sure the DNA comes out independently do those to qualify those things. So it's a pretty good process. So it's not one that it's time consuming to do.
Anybody else?
I'm all set.
Jeff? All right. I had Jeff quickly. I had took a little tour with Carl Otison just yesterday and noticed down in the creeks a lot of chunks of mud that had broken free from somewhere with mussels connected to them. And is that from storm action? Would you know? And
Sometimes one of the spots we've seen a lot, and we see it here where there's a lot of ice, a lot of freezing, where they kind of shear off and break. But it's something that we don't actively track a lot. We've got a lot of reports about it. But sometimes it also, the mussels, especially down in the creeks, have a really interesting relationship with the spartina that's in there. You know, that kind of all works together. So when you go along the edges of the banks, you can see all of the good mussels kind of within the roots of that. And sometimes we've seen where if the plants above die or break off or go away, then the mussels don't do as well. The substrate may not be solid, but we see some of those things. That's kind of anecdotal. But I'll definitely ask around to see if people have seen it before. That's good to know.
different mussels than the ones we find on the rocks?
Sometimes. So usually the ones in the salt marsh are red mussels. They have those definite ribs on their shell. And we also get a lot of, on mat, it's kind of more common to find some of the blue mussels with the smooth shells. You can also find some of the so they're all around. But usually the ones we see in the salt marsh that are bed on the banks are usually on the mussels.
All right. Not seeing any public comment. We'll move ahead to old business, beginning with staff attendance. discussion on that. Joe, if you'd like to, actually, I'll begin first by asking Jeff, what is your the job description you're giving for your attendance with Shab?
As part of it's one of those things where we try to get someone from our department here depending what's relevant on the agenda. And I'll be honest, if you guys had an agenda that was all but water quality questions, I would probably have Caitlin come and talk about that. She'd be much more knowledgeable. General discussions like this is usually me, if I can. One of the things that we get penned in with, especially in the summer, is everyone in the Natural Resources Department is a union employee. This sounds awful to drive me crazy. And one of the things for us is budgeting your allowable hours to kind of fit within the schedule. So for like just me this week, I'll use myself as an example. I have a Conservation Commission meeting tomorrow. Joanne, our office manager, is on vacation, so I'm also covering the office. So I have to look at my schedule and say, I'm here for these certain hours to make sure that we're open for our normal public hours and then have to fit meetings through. So it's something where it's kind of always a balance for that. And that's something where we have to get authorization for overtime. And I know we've talked about this before and trying to schedule it. So sometimes you may end up with someone that's here if there's something that's on the agenda because they're knowledgeable on the subject, but we also because they're the one that can best fit it within their schedule. And some gets a little bit trickier. I know that's kind of a crampy situation, and unfortunately is the situation that our department's in for that time. So we try to look at the agendas in advance and see what's on there. And I also know too that sometimes it's also a balance of the meetings at 5 p.m. Which one of us isn't traffic on kids or doing something, that unfortunately is not work related that a dance recital or something to go to that's very more important than a Shab meeting to do things with the family that she needs to go to. So some of that plays into it for some of us. We do try to make it one way or another.
Well, thanks, Joe.
I was the one that brought it up. I mean, I was concerned that frequently there was nobody here to answer questions. Given that discussion and being sympathetic for that, I think maybe what we can do is to lump discussions that are referable to one of them and give them a 2-week notice to say, we need you here for this, but lump as much into one meeting rather than have you come to every meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be nice to have somebody here all the time, but given the story that you just handed us and the fact that there's a lot of young people on your staff, that's clearly understandable.
No, it's something I know, like I said, we try to get there, but it's something that I know agendas aren't always set weeks and weeks in advance, but it's something where, you know, agendas typically for all of us get posted, you know, to meet the requirement in 48 hours, but even if we know a week in advance what's on there, or have an idea, like anyone just sends an email and say, these are the topics that are going to be up, it doesn't have to be in the reg format. That gives us a better chance to figure out who needs to be here. If you would be the best person, and to be honest, some of it is just figuring out and saying, well, I need an hour for Shab on Tuesday. Where do I move that hour to or from? And have a little bit more flexibility time-wise. So, a lot of competing interests. So, but we can definitely try. So, as much advance notice is always helpful.
I would imagine pretty much the same would go for Sheila. It's
I mean, Sheila has, the one nice part from her in the natural resources is I have the ability to say, you know, can Tara cover, can Mia cover, can Caitlin cover. It's a lot easier for us to get someone here. Sheila is kind of the unneeded one with a lot of people that have very specialized roles for her are really just laboring people that are there just to help do the physical work. And it makes it a little bit tougher for her because she doesn't have the amount of support staff in that area that we do. So it's tricky. But there are also things too that we know more in advance. If Sheila's not able to come, it may be something that, I'm coming, I can talk to Sheila about, at least provide some level of information, try to work out with a little bit.
She's still been busy with waterfront cleanup.
This time of year for them, it's waterfront cleanup, setting aids for navigation. They obviously have a lot of work to do on the town here itself. This time of year for them, they're pretty slammed. But
Did they already have work done there, do you know? I saw a barge there with a crane on it, and now it's gone.
they were doing a little bit of, they replaced some pilings that were there, the beam replacement. I don't think any real large scale work has been done, but I know they've been active.
Anybody else on this one?
No.
Proposed school to work commercial-based scalloping program at Nantucket High School. An idea that I thought of in my thoughts for moving forward with re-election and other things we could be doing here. I said at the last meeting that I'd talk about it at the Shellfish Association, and that meeting was moving along rather quickly, and I was not able to. So basically, what I see needing to be done to try to get this off the ground is finding scholopers who are interested, and then also talking to probably Dr. Bucky at the high school and see if it's something that could be worked into a program that he'd be interested in also. If anybody else, here on the board or you, Jeff, have any thoughts, ideas on this to add tips, which way to move forward?
I think last time there was that good idea of working with the CHA program at Egan Maritime. They've done a lot of work in high school. I think they can trying to at least keep the fire goals headed.
And I think Fritz was going to look into that for us, wasn't he? So,
Okay.
Is he going to be at our next meeting?
I would. I can't answer for the next meeting,
Okay.
but he did let us know he wouldn't be able to be here for this one, and Bill was hoping to be here, but such a nice day. He said he was continuing to fish, and he may be at the dock here tomorrow evening. But and I guess not to go out of order here, but back to attendance as far as on our end of things. I did get an email from Erica Mooney. I talked to her about, I left her a message about the possibilities of implementing a, what was it? An alternate, proposing an alternate board member. And she said for our board, it's not allowed. And we need to reach out to each board member and ask for their attendance or their resignation. So that's as far as I can go with that. Thanks.
Well, I continue to see Mr. Kuntz on the island. I get my mail in Scottsett, so I frequently see him standing at the bus stop waiting to come in. So he's here. I assume he's living at home. So we should, sorry if he's watching us, but we should reach out to him and see if he wants to continue to be on the board, or if he will resign so we can replace him. Because we need, if there's four of us that are making this quorum, but one of us couldn't make it, that's it. We don't have a meeting. And
Yeah.
Bill's always fishing, and Fritz is always busy, and we need,
I agree. So hopefully he is watching and reaches out. I've reached out before each meeting, and I'm not getting any response. So maybe I can get his address and actually go to his door or see him at that bus stop. So, instilling cohesiveness in the commercial bay scallop fishery, still another just an issue that I thought of where I think the industry in a whole would benefit from everybody working together as an industry versus as individuals. And again, this is something I'll bring up at the NSA. Usually several scallopers are in attendance at that meeting. And we've talked about it a bit with Tara, and it's just simply something I'd like to see there be some type of a program where we could get them to meet, but I know that's difficult, and at least reach out to them and create more of a friendship in the business, I guess, so to speak.
I agree with everything that you're saying, Mr. Chairman, but respectfully to the fishermen out there, how do you do that?
Right.
I mean, I remember when I wrote for the Nantucket Beacon, there was a thing called the Nantucket Fishermen's Association. And every January, they would have a sort of an annual meeting for people to come and just talk about whatever they wanted and try and resolve issues. They'd have that at the large group instruction room at the high school. And it was a shouting match. It was like British Parliament. It was everybody yelling about this and yelling about that, and people sitting in their little groups and nothing getting resolved. And I think it's a great thing that we have the Shellfish Association, because that provides cohesiveness, I think. But how much further are we going to get to go? I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just throwing it out there, and hopefully, just to, if somebody has a spark of an idea that could help.
Well, I mean, maybe on the safety side of things, guys looking out for each other on the water. Maybe there's a way you could do like I know it sounds corny, but like a buddy system.
Yeah.
Where when you go out fishing, you got to keep an eye on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that depends on how quickly you get your scallops and the person you keep an eye on. But maybe there's an area where you're fishing and there's a certain number of there's certain people out there, and then you come back in and you call JC or whoever, and you say, those people are still out there, and I don't know. It's just thinking off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Joe, Ginger.
I have nothing to add to that.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
All right. Last on old business, hazardous waste disposal and developing an outreach program. I didn't update on the blue pages, Peter.
Update on the blue pages is I just got word from the Land Council that they are committing to a certain number of copies to print and are then asking me about how I'm going to do distribution. So mostly it's going to be back out of my van and wherever I think they should go, or wherever this board or the Shellfish Association might tell me they should go. They are not at this time saying that they're going to pay for a Spanish version. So the person I communicate with in the Shellfish Association is a guy named Brooke Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So I may get back to him and say,
Brooke.
Okay, I may get back to her and say, the Land Council, and they were copied on this email about how much the land bank would pay. So maybe I would appeal to her and say, would you be interested, would the Shellfish Association be interested in paying for the Spanish version? Do you guys think that's important? And share with her, with you guys, with the Shellfish Association, the estimates that I was given for that.
Okay.
But yeah, so if we, if it's conceivable that blue pages could be here within, I mean, maybe a month or less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Great.
So how, excuse me, may I? Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
please.
Okay. How extensive are the blue pages?
64 pages,
Wow.
about 14 chapters on everything from how the water quality, how the, the water, how it works with water falling from the sky, hitting the ground, making it into the harbor, the nutrients that are carried into the harbor, how the septic systems work, about hazardous waste, how to dispose of it. If you want to know essentially what we've done, and when I say we, that is the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee, now defunct, guided by Sarah Otai, the document edited by Lisa Epperstein, and then twice edited by the Land Council and twice edited by the Shellfish Association. If you want to see a good example of that, do a search online for the Island Blue Pages.
Okay.
And the Island Blue Pages will take you to the Martha's Vineyard Blue Pages, and you will see roughly what we're doing, what we've done.
Cool.
And it's been a 7.5 year process, and I'm all done doing it. So don't get any ideas.
Well, actually, I was wondering if some of the sort of more simple, basic, like hazardous waste days, if there was something that we could, the main paint sources, for example, or, there are a couple stores that sell paint. If somebody's buying paint there, if they could get a quick reminder, a little sheet of some kind that, says what the days are. And
someone will have to pay for that.
yeah.
What I've learned is that, through all the editing process, there was a certain amount of money that was outlaid that I was paid, a certain amount of money for the designers, and then we had to go to the Shellfish Association and the Land Council for the rest. Mm-hmm. So every time we do something beyond where we are now, someone has to pay. So yes, things could be pulled out. Sections of it could be pulled out. But I think the town produces a brochure for hazardous waste. They actually have a PDF of it on their website somewhere.
They do.
So I don't know.
Yeah, they had a how to recycle and stuff like that too that they hand out at the dump also. I don't know if it's as effective there because somebody who's already at the dump is attempting to comply. Somebody leaving them out in the middle moors is not.
Right. I would say you should go and look at that online and see what you think of that. And if you want.
Well, it's just. I think we have to start with an idea,
right.
And then if we decide it's a good idea, we could look at ways to implement it, and then.
Certainly certain sections of the document could be just pulled out. Whole chapters could be pulled out and printed separately if that's what people wanted to do. I could get PDFs of it and we could just, print copies and distribute them.
Well, I was thinking of actually something a lot shorter and simpler. Like, we were talking the other day, a friend of mine was saying that they had, someone was visiting from the Dominican Republic, and they were amazed at how clean things were, that people actually picked up trash, and, having now traveled to the tropics a couple of times and seen the roadways totally lined with trash, there's a entirely different culture.
Yeah.
And that.
Well, that's it. It's a third world country, and their priorities aren't ours.
Well, no, but there's no reason that, like just a simple dump hours, what the dump accepts, stuff like that. Just basic information that, is handed out where you buy the tools that you need to do. Maybe I'm just being naive about it.
No, you're preaching to the choir that's sitting right next to you. That's Andy's issue.
Well, after watching the last selectmen's meeting and hearing the report that somebody poured latex paint into the sewer in Sconset and it just about shut down the treatment plant, and I guess it's kills the biology that treats the sewerage, and as little as possibly 5 gallons did this cause this damage, and they were lucky they caught it in time, I guess, but it put a lot of them out for quite some time to clean it up. And these, to me, are simple awareness blurbs that need to get out there. I don't know how far they're going with it at the sewer department, but latex paint isn't considered a hazardous waste. They don't even take it on hazardous waste day. They tell you to let it dry up in the can and put it in bulky or add kitty litter to it. And I think things move too fast here for the program that we have in place at this time. Having Household Hazardous Waste Day only 6 times a year, every other month. I've lived in a very small town of 1,500 in northern New Hampshire, and they don't have a landfill. They have what they call a transfer station. And the 4 days a week that they're open, they accept hazardous waste every day that they're open. And I don't think contractors have the means to store it for 2 months. I don't think some homeowners want to see it around when they're in the mood for cleaning up and getting rid of things. And so it's something I feel needs to be looked at and revised, revisited, and replanned. Joe?
Jim. You know, Rob O'Neill seems to be a very, very compliant, hard-working guy. I mean, the past 2 times I've been to the dump, either with green waste or household waste, he's been there, and he's walking around, he's looking for ways to make that place look better, and they got all that money. So the question to me is, maybe the DPW should be involved in this particular issue of hazardous waste management and how to maybe increase the times. I mean, right now, it's this sort of vague thing that goes on. And, you know, this document that you're talking about is fairly extensive, and I don't know who's going to pick it up and read it. But DPW, in terms of hazardous waste, let's talk to Rob again. I mean, he said he'd come back.
Yes.
You know, Mr. O'Neill, rather. He
Yes.
said he'd come back and talk to us about specific things that were concerning us, and I think that this is a real one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
I agree.
I drive by work sites, and I see people cleaning brushes and dumping this stuff in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they, again, don't have that understanding that this is where our aquifer is. You know, especially in Nantucket, where we're all on wells, it's killing us. You know, I mean, you have your water tested, you have your well tested. It's only tested for a very narrow number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually thinking about having our well water sent off again, but to somebody else, for my own benefit, to look for some, you know, benzenes and things, which I think are leaching out of that dump. There's no question in my mind. You know, and I don't want to be drinking that stuff.
Yeah.
So he is the guy I think we should engage.
Mm-hmm.
But we should engage him with a specific set of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And a specific set of ideas that he can say yay or nay to, and maybe have him help with sections of what Peter's spent so much time writing to get out to people is a short blurb and say, look, these are the things we're interested in. No paints, don't dump this in the ground, don't put this in the ground. But if you want to read the full document, it's online.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the idea of a printed document that's 64 pages to me, Peter, no disrespect, sounds daunting.
Mm.
And if you handed me a 64-page document and said, read about our environment, I might read it. I would lay you odds that 95% of the people would just say, I mean, I hate to have so little faith in mankind. But
No, yeah.
No,
we're
it's
destroying
just,
our island.
there's a practical disconnect. I'm sorry,
Please.
may I? There's a
Please.
practical disconnect between, you know, the 64-page document and maybe something as simple as like an address label sticker on every paint can that says don't dump latex, this is and if the DPW would cooperate and maybe have a shed somewhere where people could leave their stuff until the proper time. I mean, it's a Saturday, maybe something else happens and you can't go that day, and then it's 2 months, and then you forget, and then it's just not convenient enough.
Well, New Hampshire may have different rules than Massachusetts on how it's handled once it's transferred to a transfer station. I'm not sure, but the little place that I would go to with my waste oil or paint thinners or whatnot, the attendant there would deal with anybody who had it and make sure he himself would put oil in an oil drum, paint thinners in a paint thinner drum, and it was very well organized in a very small shed. And just one guy dealt with it, and he also dealt with making sure people were putting their glass and plastics in the right place also. So here it would be a much larger scale, but certainly, Joe, put down your thoughts and ideas, and let's do that.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get Rob to come in, and as long as we have something to present him and questions to ask him, I'm sure he'd be glad to attend.
I wanted to say that I think that there's more to it than just putting out a barrel and having an attendant take it. Otherwise, the town probably would have already done that. They have, Clean Harbors come down, and they have people who are trained in handling that. They have the containers that receive that. I think, I'm surmising for a reason, if the town didn't have to pay Clean Harbors, or if Waste Options didn't have to pay Clean Harbors, they probably wouldn't. If they could just have barrels and places to put the stuff. I'm just saying that, okay, we take it on, but maybe that's something that employees, DPW employees, will need to be trained to do, and will need to spend money on things to contain that stuff. So I'm not poo-pooing anything anyone's saying. I'm just saying that those are things to consider, because Clean Harbors wouldn't be here if we didn't need them. And you roll up there, and it's 4 or 5 guys and some DPW workers helping. So I think maybe the way to do it is just to have it to be more regular, But then how much does it cost for that to be more regular?
Right.
And we should invest. We should find out. We should find out what it takes to collect that material and store it, and because we're gonna have to store it until we ship it off island. Clean Harbors comes and they just take it. So we'd have to store it, and then we'd have to ship it off island. So that'd be money. So.
Well, as it is now, everybody has to store it, and
Right.
that's not clearly, always working.
It's just pushing it to the periphery rather than centralizing.
Yeah.
And the question is there an efficient way to centralize it?
Yeah.
Maybe every other week. I mean, I understand that this all gets expensive, but the cleanup in the end, or the
Could be money well spent.
in the end, is far, far more expensive.
If the dump had been lined back when they started, et cetera. Yeah, I know.
It's all in retrospect.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. New business. Seed stranding rescue protocol discussion. Did I bring this up? I don't remember how we compiled the agenda.
Well, I brought it up, and
All right.
I brought it up because Smitty accosted me at Marine Home Center saying this was on Shab's agenda a meeting or two ago, and I told him no, it wasn't. And then I went back and I looked at my email queue, and I'd gotten something from Brooke Christian seeking people who wanted to join a group that would push this down the road some more. And but when I saw Smitty, I reminded him that we did work on this, and then that the town, meaning Chief Pittman, our police chief, had supposedly set up some sort of phone tree that when it was time to collect seed scallops after a stranding, that people would be called automatically, and I thought that had been implemented. Do you know if that ever happened?
It was put together once, but we haven't used the reverse 911 to do it.
So, and Smitty went on to say, it's the same people who show up for the trainings every time. So even if you call people, who's going to show up? And we rehashed how we got a donation from the Shellfish Association to get the fish boxes to the Natural Resources Department, so that in the weather training we'd be able to deploy that stuff and be able to pick up scallops and put them in the boxes and have coordinate with the boats that did show up and so so then maybe Andy and I thought that this should be on here if we wanted to. Maybe.
If it helps, it is something that Brooke has reached out to Tara and I about as well, to kind of start that discussion back up with the Shellfish Association for how best to deal with that. And we just haven't connected on that, but I think that's something that's a discussion that we all kind of figure out the best way to kind of attack that issue.
Sorry, Joe. I wanted to try and find the minutes where we talked about that, and Smitty mentioned that he had been paid by the town some money to work on that protocol one summer, I guess, and he.
Smitty was paid by the Shellfish Association to develop that.
Okay, so he wanted to find.
Also working at the hatchery for the town as an intern at the same time.
Right. Okay.
Kind of overlap, but
He
I would
wanted.
say paid for that protocol. We helped him kind of put it together a few months ago for us.
He asked me if I had his report on that or something, and I said, well, I thought that the NRD would probably have it, or the NSA would have it.
Oh, I definitely have.
So he would be looking for that, and I said, well, anyway, I should call him up and just say, look, the NSA is following up on this, and I'll give you all the information so that
We
you.
all have digital versions of it. I can get some of this.
Okay.
How old is that? Roughly.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
for
I'm gonna
5
say
years.
4 because it was the first year that I spent winter here.
Yeah. 4 or 5
So I remember saying that I would volunteer in Nantucket, But I have a question.
Sure.
A stranding occurs. What are the resources that you need? You need boats to pick the stuff up that's been shoveled on from the shore into boxes, and then it's got to be taken out. So, I don't understand how much do you need in this situation? 1 boat, 2 boats, 3 boats?
It's bodies. Start with people.
It really varies
Yeah.
depending on the situation. If it was a stranding like we had, that big kind of lead stranding that we had, where it was, 4 different locations, and we probably moved off
2,000 was the number.
2,000 bushels.
Yeah.
That was, kind of an all hands on deck moment where you have, 30 or 40 people on the ground in each location, and then 4 or 5 boats servicing each one of those locations to do. And you probably could have used more. But then there are ones that are a lot smaller. So it really kind of depends. There's no real answer to it. But I think the easy answer is I would rather send people home for having too many, or say, hey, come back in 2 hours and trade out with people so people aren't there for 6 or 8 hours, than to be staring down 6 locations with a dozen people going,
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is more of the getting the bigger response up front. I mean, the Halloween training was awesome for how well it went together, but I'm not sure you catch like the bottle in that place.
If it happened during the summer, I'd volunteer in my boat, but obviously my boat's out of the water by November 1st, and, or somewhere in the end of October. But it seems to me that if you had some sort of phone tree for volunteers, there's enough people, I think, who are environmentally active enough and want to be activists that they, in turn, if they were on a phone tree, if they got a call, so if only half the people showed up, you could send some home and say, we don't need you. But I think the tree has to be fairly large. You have to have people who are willing to do this.
does. I will tell you this from personal experience. You can never have enough people that have said they'll volunteer, because in our having gone through it and called through that tree a few times, you really bet about 5 to 10% of the people who actually respond. I mean, there have been times before where you start calling and you spread out and you get kind of your 10 individuals that are really engaged and go, and then they call back and they say, I have 2 after calling 30. And you're like, and some of it is timing, some of it is people not wanting to be in the weather. Like, it's a real hodgepodge, and volunteers are always tough because they're still volunteers.
You know, I go to social media on this one. Just hammer it out. You have people's Facebook accounts, you have their email accounts, you have their text accounts.
That particular stranding, social media worked really well, and all kinds of people who aren't involved in Shellfish other than going bush raking for scallops were posting where they saw that, and then we kind of coordinated, and lots of people showed up, and then we had boats, and it was like Jeff says, it was lightning in a bottle. We were fortunate that all those people were involved, but and plus it was nice and warm, and it was nice to be out in your shorts and getting scallops, but then there are those absolute crappy days. The wind stops blowing and the scallops all over the beach, but it's still cold and nasty.
Well, I have to run because I need to get some.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but
yes.
Jeff, thank you.
Good job.
I understand, and that you probably, if you have 100 people who say they'll do it, as Jeff said, 10 will show up. But if the net gets bigger, you can get more people. And I think that people don't respond to phone calls as well anymore as they do to social media and texts. I mean, I think that people are just such phone junkies these days that, they see something on their phone and their eyes light up and they'll resend it to somebody else that they know. There's plenty of us who are retired sitting in Nantucket that, it might be an ugly day, but I can put on my wetsuit and I can put on some foul weather gear and go out there. I'd be glad to do that, And I'm sure I could find another 10 people. You engage organizations like the Nantucket Admiralty. You engage Nantucket Homeowners Association or Residents Association, whatever it's called these days. And you get into trouble for that one. But there's ways of getting the net out. I just think we have to rethink the way we want to do this.
I think that I think it starts at the Shellfish Association.
I would agree.
And I think that they come up with a protocol and they bring it to us, and we hash it out, and or at least support them as they go to the selectmen of the NRD. And I don't attend those meetings a lot, but I have, and it feels like maybe the scalpers that go to those meetings, the people that go to those meetings, maybe they feel more comfortable talking out issues than they do here at this meeting, because number one, they're not on camera, and number two, it's among their own. Maybe I'm not characterizing it correctly, but it seems like that protocol could be hammered out quicker and more efficiently with those guys. What do you think, Andy?
Well, some good ideas were put out at the last meeting. This is really, but it may have to do with us as far as supporting some regulatory suggestions. Reaching out, via social media is fine, and getting lots of volunteers is fine. It's wonderful, but you need the fisherman involvement.
That's what I mean.
And one thing Carl Sherlin said, which really struck home for me, was you get the same few guys donating their time with their boats. He said the voucher for an extra box is certainly nice, but what really hurts is when you see other guys heading out fishing while they're donating their time and their boat to get seed off the beach for future fishing. And so there's one area that needs to be addressed. If there's a seed stranding, no scalloping allowed
Well, that's what
until
happened.
it's done.
And that's
And
what happened when, and Jeff isn't correct, it wasn't October, it was like November 15th, I think it was November 15th and 16th. So it was during the season. And when that went on, the red flag went up and no one could go fishing until it was dealt with. So I totally agree with that. And I'm not a fisherman, so the fishermen out there will be mad that I say that, but then I would say it would give incentive, then it'd be all hands on deck, and then you're quickly back to fishing after that.
I second.
Well, you'd have to have excuse me, you'd have to have an idea about how, what's the amount that triggers that, because last winter in Nantucket, for example, there were a bunch of times when the wind blew out of the north and there was a lot of seed on the beach, but the gulls could swallow it down almost as fast as it came ashore,
Right.
But it probably didn't even amount to a bushel,
Well,
at the time.
One of the things that came out of us working on seed stranding protocol was that certain people could volunteer to be assigned to beaches where you knew that the beaches that are seed prone areas, and a map would be created showing the seed prone areas, and people's names would be written on the map, and when there was a blow, the person would be responsible for walking that beach and reporting to Tara or to Jeff, and saying, I've seen, whatever, 4 parking spaces full of scallops, and it's a foot thick, and then they would come out and look at it and do an assessment and say, okay, we need this many people. Like this winter, I saw stranding up at Walwyn, and I reported it to Tara, but it was the scallops, each scallop was maybe that far apart from each other, so it wasn't that thick. They're up there, and I took pictures, and that's how it would, that we had talked about it would work. We would take a picture and email it to the appropriate person, and then they would make an assessment. They would say, oh, it's not worth it, I'm not even coming out there, or I'm coming out and take a look at it and then decide.
so
Okay.
that judgment would be made on a case-by-case basis.
Well, yeah, you'd have to do that. Yeah.
And
So who makes it, I guess, is the question.
it's gonna fall on natural resources,
Yeah,
I would
okay.
imagine.
Yeah, because they have the boxes, and they have to decide if they're going to commit the people to get the boxes up there, and then they're going to call the people who they know will volunteer their boats to come up, and then the conditions have to be right. Yeah.
And if social media is the means of communication, if it's a small stranding, certainly, the word could be put out. We've got enough volunteers, or if it's a large stranding, we need more. And if it's during the season, the day is closed to harvesting until the seed are picked up. I don't think it gets any simpler than that. And if I offend a fisherman today or not, so be it. This is your livelihood, and you all should be out there willing to volunteer your time to save during a seed stranding.
Multiple incentives. Cancel the fishing for the day, but whoever shows up gets a voucher for another box. I mean, there's multiple ways of incentivizing things. And an extra box, I think, is a pretty nice reward. And you're going to have, hopefully, more scallops for your efforts subsequent years.
Exactly.
Or extra days at the end of the season or something like that.
But we have to remember that if you're going to put extra days at the end of the season, we have to make sure that that's
Approved.
approved and codified is the word I was looking for.
Anything else tonight on seed stranding?
I'm all set.
Not for me.
Something we want to continue to discuss?
Yep.
Goals and objectives.
Are we still working off of our old list?
Well, we need to look at the old list and look at some new things we've been talking about recently, I guess, and regroup.
I mean, I know from training people, I learned a long time ago that with goals and objectives, you got to get rid of some before you add new ones, because all that happens is the list gets longer. It's sort of like your own personal to-do list, and you really have to start getting rid of things because it just becomes cumbersome to have all this stuff falling behind us. And I think this year we've begun to really strike a couple of things off the list, and I think we should keep doing that.
So we should have Fritz, for the next meeting, distribute what we have on there. And hopefully he can do that like tomorrow, so that we have all of us looking at it, and then we come to the next meeting and go, okay, these things can go, and here are my ideas for next, for moving forward. These are the things I think we can really accomplish within the year. I don't know what they are right now because I don't have the thing in front of me.
Well, let's go home. Let's do some homework and start jotting down some notes and try to have a rough draft of this for the next meeting, at least in our minds and in notes, and to be able to at least put a draft together for the next meeting.
I'll email Fritz and ask him to send out the matrix as it exists now.
I believe Fritz is involved in with a sailing group in Bermuda. That's why he's not at this
on
meeting.
Okay. Poor Fritz.
Yes. Excuse me. Anything to add, Ginger?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Anything else? Goals and objectives. Water quality testing in shellfish bed areas. I should have jumped this forward before Jeff left. This was brought up at the NSA, Shellfish Association. Several members are concerned that since our winter disaster with the sewer break, they are not aware of any water quality testing being done directly in the vicinity of shellfish beds. And we have heard from Jeff that Caitlin Shaw, who is the water quality expert that does the testing, is very busy all week long with testing. So I think between both harbors and ponds, I'm sure that's the case. She's very busy, and then all the samples have to be sent off island, which was another discussion at NSA about the big idea, which is something that could be funded by somebody who wants to make a difference. And would Nantucket benefit by having its own water quality testing lab? So that was going to be presented to the, I'll say, philanthropists interested in making a difference. That with the new the water company office building over here, it was mentioned at NSA that there's about 3,000 square feet of space available in that building. But starting a water quality testing lab is a multi-million-dollar endeavor. So I don't think Nantucket can actually justify it unless we actually did testing for other counties as well. But as far as testing not being done or allegedly not being done in shellfish beds, maybe we can pass that question on to Jeff before we create our next agenda for something for him to mull over. Maybe we could hear from Caitlin on some water quality testing, since it's been quite some time. I'd love to hear some results. I think a lot of people would like to hear some results of how things are testing since January. Joe?
I'm going to be evil here. We were told that data was lost after they sent it to whatever lab it was sent to. We have never, ever seen a water quality report. They supposedly have 2 or 3 zones out there in the main harbor that do this on a daily basis. So,
I don't know if they're still in this time of year. Don't
Well,
they
I-
take those out
yeah, but
Yeah.
still, we've
No.
never
No,
ever
we-
seen the data from that.
from last summer?
I'd be pretty interested to see how it varies, what it is in the spring before lawns are fertilized, what it is dead summer, and what it is in the fall when you get more significant rains and how it changes. I mean, these are all things that are germane to water quality in the harbor in general and over shellfish beds. I mean, these are critical things, and that should be our purview. We should have somebody who works with us that tells us what this means.
Oh, and
That's Caitlin, and Caitlin will come if we request her. She loves
Great.
talking about this stuff.
Great.
And
Well,
for the thing
let's
about the zones, there's only 2 of them, and I know that the water quality testing program tests all the streams near all the streams that enter the harbor,
Right.
and various other places around the harbor. So the zones are only in 2 places. So it's not as if we just rely on them.
Right.
And if we get a word out to Caitlin that we've got questions, she'll come.
That'll be great.
She'll answer the questions. And then this thing that Jeff is talking about, the water quality presentation to the Board of Selectmen, that is the results analyzed for last year's water quality sampling done by SMAS, the School of Marine Science and Technology at UMass Dartmouth. So that's the big report. And we can request that Caitlin come and give that report to us.
I think that'd be great.
So it's not as if that they're hiding anything from us. You just have to ask for it.
Okay.
And it'll come,
I just thought that being that supposedly that was in our purview, that at some point we would have seen that or gotten it, but
Well, it hasn't come yet. I guess I guess Jeff is saying maybe it's not ready but this is the time of year that it happens. So,
okay.
Joe, I understand exactly how you feel. I sit here and I'm hoping, okay, we're going to get a surprise today with a report. But as Peter says, let's simply request
It's
it.
an agenda item.
And, yeah.
We
Yeah.
ask Caitlin to
Yeah.
come and give us the
She's
report.
come before.
That sounds good to me.
You know, maybe that's what we need to do instead of sitting here and my thinking that people should be here to tell us something. Maybe we need to be more proactive and say, look, we would like you here a month from now, this meeting, and have that as one agenda item that we set way in advance, and let them do the talking. We don't govern, we advise. We can't advise without the data.
We can suggest to govern
Sure.
and see how it goes from there.
Andy makes contact with everybody before the meetings. He talks to
Yeah.
Jeff and he talks to Sheila and says, can you make the meeting? And we need you for this, that, and the other thing. But then also at the same time, be understanding this is Sheila's very busy. Sheila's busy all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, with all the storm cleanup plus, getting the lifeguards in order and getting the headhunter ready
And be her job.
and
I'm sure we'll see Sheila. She'll be able to come in. She wasn't able to make it the last meeting. She had high school volunteers. It was during the school break, and she needed to take advantage of some sunshine. And they were cleaning up Washington Street flotsam. So fully excused there. I did not hear back from her today. I would imagine she's still in a situation where she's quite busy, but I know we'll hear from her. So it was good to hear from Jeff that he looks over our agenda so that he can prepare himself, and having more advance notice than just the Thursday we create the agenda, which is
Yeah.
only a couple of business days before the meeting. I'm fine with. I'll get in touch with him this week and
Yeah.
and tell him we'd like to, because the water quality reports. I mean, he may say, "Hey, we're waiting on results. They won't be available till a month from now." Who knows? So, but
I just want to say one more thing. It's not
Yeah.
like they're trying to keep anything from us.
Right.
It's just that they're as busy as we all are, if
Yeah.
not more. And, you know, you also have to remember that it was this board that was the main driver for the town hiring water quality specialists. We said we need to get back our town biologist, which the town biologist position is all about water quality. And before Caitlin, that was Keith Conant. And since Keith Conant, we hadn't had anybody until Caitlin was hired. And so our board recognized we got to have this person back. This is not acceptable. Have nobody, well, it wasn't nobody, but Tara was doing it in addition to her other duties. And so, Caitlin's very excited about water quality. She'll come talk to us. You can call her up or email her and she'll talk to you. Yeah.
Anything else on that subject? Moving forward, proposed pesticide work group discussion. Ginger, please.
Well, there was a town meeting vote, and I think the result of the town meeting vote was just to, ask the health department about, initially there was a motion to, or sorry, my brain is not functioning, to ban glyphosate herbicides. And aside from the fact that we can't actually legally do that, there was concern from some of the conservation groups that if we banned glyphosate, that they would be replaced with worse ones. And there was some talk of having a work group, which I think we might like to be involved in if there is one, similar to the fertilizer work group that worked with the landscapers. So I don't know anything further, but maybe we could get Darcy to come and talk to us, or Emily Mulden, or both of them, and see if there's some interest in getting that done. I did go to the pesticide training that the Land Council brought here, and I think it would be nice to have more public education about what different things do and how they do it and their half-life and how they live in the soil and how soluble or not soluble they are. I just went for my own education, and I learned a lot, although he was not a dynamic speaker, but it was a lot of good information.
Joe, did you have some information on glyphosate?
Oh, I spent a lot of time researching it.
Yeah.
And the trouble is that the literature is completely inconclusive in terms of the scientific evidence that the damage that it does. The one area that it really seems to be very strong is as it's a whole new area in medicine, is what they call hormone interrupters. And hormone interrupters basically mess with the balance in your body. I mean, you have probably 30, 40, 50 hormones floating around in your body. They all interact. If you block one because a hormone interrupter attaches to it and you don't make it anymore, the system goes out of whack. And nobody really understands what that does. The genetic stuff in terms of cancer, either somebody's hiding the truth, because when you actually go through the data carefully, it does not seem that there's significant evidence that it causes genetic damage. I mean, I don't know that I believe that. And it depends on how you look at it. Is it the effect on man from it being sprayed, or is it the effect on man from the environment? We know that Monsanto has created a whole bunch of plants that are totally resistant to glyphosate. Glyphosate, I always say it. But, basically wheat used to be 6 feet tall, now it's 3 feet tall. And that's because it's genetically modified, and you can spray it and kill all the milkweed that grows in between, and Emily will talk about this at any time. You kill all the milkweed in there, which destroys the monarch butterfly population. So what's the effect on us is hard to tell, because we're so far removed from that part of the food chain that we don't see it. But in terms of direct effects on man, it's really hard to dig it out of the literature and make conclusive evidence. It's been banned in the EU. It's been banned in a multitude of countries in the Middle East, which seems pretty incredible to me since they don't have many plants that they grow there. But they banned it. I'm being sarcastic. But they've made the effort. But the World Health Organization classifies it as questionable. But they're not saying go ahead and use it. And I think that's a healthy attitude. You know, pond coalition people are going to argue with us because that's how they're getting rid of the Phragmites. And my point was, if you're going to spray this stuff on a given day, at least put signs out in the communities where you're spraying and say, do not go near the plants. Do not go near the pond. They didn't do that. They just sprayed. I mean, they sprayed on Long Pond, and I live adjacent to Long Pond. I wasn't happy about that.
Did they actually spray, or were they doing the targeted?
They don't. There's no way you can convince me that they're sitting around with a hypodermic needle injecting each reed.
Well, I think what they did was it's incredibly labor intensive. It takes a team of two. One person clips, and the other has a cotton glove on top of a rubber glove, and then they do the pinch, and then it's just stem by stem. That's the protocol.
You know, talk about labor intensive.
Well,
I cannot imagine. I mean, I just look at that clump as you go over the Massasoit.
I know, yeah.
There's got to be thousands in there.
They did the weed raking a bunch of years ago. It was completely ineffective.
Right.
Someone, I'm told, took the initiative into their own hands to try and cut it out, one of the ponds with a chainsaw, thereby sending little fragments of Phragmites root through the entire pond system, which it's not how you do
all
it.
I'm saying is that it's a really complicated issue on multiple levels. But to me, having some background in biology, I mean, it's very hard for me to say as I read through this stuff that there is conclusive evidence that it causes genetic damage or it causes cancer. You know, but I'm leery about that data. You know, I'm questioning that data, but I don't have the resources to prove it or disprove it. You know, but the hormone interrupter stuff, that's really interesting to me because that's one of those places where nobody actually understands how it works. But there is clearly evidence in mammals that does happen.
Well, there are a lot of endocrine disruptors as a byproduct of the breakdown of other things like, I think I was reading at one point it was blood pressure drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't actually test for those here, but Switzerland, I think, got concerned because all their lakes and streams were being treated for low blood pressure.
I mean, why doesn't everybody know that when you have medication in your house, it's supposed to go to the pharmacy? And the pharmacy has a way of disposing of it. I know that because in the community that we lived in before we moved here at the CVS, there was a sign. Bring your meds in. Do not flush them down the toilet. Simple message.
They just had that in the newspaper a couple weeks ago.
It's
There was a
filtering
collection
down.
day.
But I mean, these are things that we really need to pay attention to. I mean, this is our environment, and it's a small island, it's a small ecosystem, and boy, it can tip really quick.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
Now,
Sorry for my
anybody,
rant.
now Fritz being involved with the Land Council and the Fertilizer Committee, did he mention something about pesticides? Do you recall, Peter?
Well, it's herbicides too was
yeah.
part of the
I don't
discussion.
remember if you. No, I don't remember.
All right.
Agents
Okay.
of doom. That's how I like to refer to them.
And
You know.
just as a side, Phragmites, they don't like salt water. And when the Conservation Foundation restored tidal flow to Medui Creek near the boathouse in Pulpus Harbor, the Phragmites in there were all killed off because salt water went in there. I know it's a certain salinity level, so that there are places where they'll survive and it's not getting the full effect. But
Yeah, I asked in the Conservation Commission when they were permitting that project, and apparently Phragmites is a little bit more salt tolerant than cattails, which are the
Right.
native thing.
so if you look at
But they were aiming for Spartina.
if you look at that pond that's between Myocomet and Wallwinnet, it's in Smooth Hummocks. It's called Myoxes Pond.
My Oaks.
I'm sorry.
Well, you know,
I see the soda pop moxie when I see that pond. But anyway, that particular pond has Phragmites right up against between the beach and the rest of the pond, and then from there's that little section. Then it's cattails all the way up as far as you go. So I see what you're saying.
yeah.
Well,
My oaksies,
My Oaks.
my oaks.
It's
Okay.
not, no.
salt water enters Long Pond with every tide, and
Well, it's now
Nice.
complete. It's completely brackish. It's tidal all the way into the North Head. But the interesting thing to me is that I don't think it's tidal on the twice a day schedule. It's delayed, so that flat, which used to be now was interesting to me. That flat there that's opposite First Bridge. There's a mud flat which appears periodically with certain it's part of the lunar cycle, not the monthly lunar cycle, not the daily lunar cycle. That used to all be Phragmites, and it was scraped off by the ice when we had that hard winter a couple of years ago. So there were some areas that were just, frozen out. So I don't know if there's some alternate way of getting rid of it, but it would be interesting to try.
The conservation organizations seem to think that the way we're dealing with it is the only way to deal with it in terms of, using an herbicide. Everything else they've tried has failed.
Right.
And the roots apparently form thick mats.
Oh, they're like iron. These things float around in the pond, and then when they break loose, then they come ashore, and then it
Just
starts.
starts another one
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
where should we move with this, Ginger? Continue discussion?
Well, I think
Try to get Darcy in to talk about her.
I think I'll just ask around and see if there's a pesticide or herbicide work group forming, and if there is one, or maybe we could. I'll find out, and then if I can get them to come and talk to us, I'll tell you and put it on
Right.
the agenda.
I would imagine that there'd be some information on that at the health department, whereas they're in charge of the fertilizer program.
Yeah.
Let's see where it's gone. I don't recall.
It was a town meeting referred it to the health department, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
So we're not actually allowed to prohibit the sale here,
Right.
but I think the concern that would be replaced with something worse is a valid one, because there's so many other things out there.
Kerosene.
Fine.
That's
The land bank has, on occasion, burnt that pond.
Really?
Yep, we've had prescribed fire that they let the fire run right over the pond and burn off the cattails, burn off the Phragmites, which probably didn't do anything. It just made them want to grow more.
Added some quick, yeah, right.
Put the carbon right back into the ground.
Well, the ash is a good fertilizer,
Yeah,
basically. It's a snack for the
I will say
plants.
trying to manage weeds and bugs without herbicides and pesticides in my small yard is a full-time job.
you need a goat.
Although I've started using some strange things and they seem to work, but you really have to be vigilant.
All right. Any items, thoughts for next meeting? Nothing new?
Nothing new.
All right.
Jumps to mind.
Well, we'll do our homework on the goals and objectives and, think about anything else that we may be continuing for discussion for the next meeting. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, I think we should really think about pesticide workbook as issues, and then the water quality testing, whether or not we would like somebody to come in and talk to us, and sort of come up with a bunch of things that we would like, what's his name, Rob McNeil, to talk about disposal. I mean, we already have 3 or 4 topics. The question is how do we prioritize them for ourselves and then get to the people and say a month in advance, will you have time to come talk to us? Can you devote, and not have a bunch of topics that day, but let them sort of have the floor for an hour or as long as they want to talk about it, and they give us an opportunity to ask questions. A more focused sort of agenda might get us to getting rid of some of our issues.
That's kind of like falls in our workshop review,
Right.
where we pick a couple of issues and that's all we're going to talk about, and we ignore the rest of our agenda and say, we're doing a workshop and we want you people in the audience because we need to ask you questions.
So for me, my topic would be how do we get more directed information? How do we get people to come in and get us more directed information? We can explore that. And as you say, that might be part of a workshop, but maybe we need to do a workshop in the near future, especially before the summer.
All right, well, summer's coming right up on us here. Peter, please refresh me. Summer meeting schedule is July and August only. Okay, so we'll be having 2 meetings May, next being May 15th, 2 in June, first one being June 5th.
And you can always decide that, that we need a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You can always decide. You can always, it's not, we're only going to meet once. That's it. So.
No, I was looking at the calendar, and actually somewhere, one of these months, there's 5 Tuesdays in the month, so we'll have 3 weeks between meetings.
Right.
I don't know if
Several times a year.
that's this month, because today's May 1st.
Right.
And-
Yeah.
Happens several times a year.
Yeah.
So we would have a meeting the 1st, the 15th, and the 29th this month. Is that right?
We have a meeting.
We will not meet on the 29th.
We won't.
We
Okay.
have-
Only the first and third Tuesdays.
The next
Right,
meeting
and
is June
that's
5th.
where I got into trouble once because I didn't pay attention to that. Okay.
First and third Tuesdays, so when that next Tuesday comes around, that's still part of the same month. Anything else? Anybody wants to? Okay. So our next meeting's May 15th. Everybody here?
Yep,
Sam,
we'll be here.
that's why I was just
Okay.
looking.
Yep, I'll be here.
All right, great.
I was discussing.
Motion to adjourn?
So,
So moved, or
So
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.